Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are, because it is certainly good to be here. My name is Baltimore Facts, and this is Mud City. Yeah, nailed it. Okay, so I hope everybody's doing well today. We're going to jump right back in with the Book of Arches. I forgot to bring this one up uh, in the first part there, which I guess I'm going to have to go back in and relabel chapters 1 through 5. But when I did the walking delusional, I mentioned that I thought the beehive started. I was walking in this direction here, coming this way, and I thought I noticed the beehive here, and that's what started it. But really, the beehive is on the right side, so I must have noticed the medallion and then turned around and started and went right to left. So I wanted to just point out, I forgot to do that in the last one, that's how the story is going. We're going right to left in this archway. And so yeah, well, let's just jump right in. Let's do a quick little recap. So we have a civilization. There's a happy beehive. It's productive. It's doing all the things that, a good beehive does. Produces honey, and then, oh no, destruction comes. Horrible, who knows for what price, but some of it's saved, right? Something is kept behind, and then so they reset and they flip over the hourglass, and the sands of time begin again, and they rebuild, right? There is rebuilding going on, and they reseed, right? And then there's another happy little beehive. And this is where we're going to begin today. So now there's been a reset, and there's another beehive. I'm using happy. That's my inner Bob Ross coming out. So he's a happy little beehive, right? But it's just another civilization, right? It's just whatever was the next, thing, right? And it's all hive mentality, right? And look at it's a pyramid, right? Right? It's a pyramid. I'm going to go more into, because there's so many beehives and hourglasses, I am going to have to do a little bit more. And I keep there's always things I'm finding out. So it's fun. That's what makes it fun. There's always room for growth and and updating, and being right and wrong and every which way. That's what makes it fun, right? So, because what the heck do we know? We don't know anything, right? And so here's the next symbol, right? The wheat and the fashies, God, yeah, it's crazy the way the role that the fashies has just exploded into Baltimore for me and in Mud City, because it wasn't anything I ever really paid attention to. Of course, I'd seen it. It's it's ever present. And there are so many great videos out there that really go into detail on the fashies and where you can find them. It's like on the flag of the House of Representatives. It's probably on the dollar. It's everywhere, right? It's definitely a sign of imperial control, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about it going forward. But there's so much great information on it that way that I need to look at it from another angle, and that's what I hope to do a little bit later. But I'm going to start with the wheat, because when you the story, just the way the stalk here is telling it, replant new bees. What do bees do? They pollinate, and so that's plant, right? And so I'm going to go with the wheat. So, but I just want to say, when they have, and that's, the fasces being the symbol of control. So the new civilization comes, it prospers and needs to be controlled, right? That's what that symbol's telling me, right? Prosperity and control. I don't know why, but yes, that's what that tells me. So we're going to look into wheat a little bit here, and I hope I can get through this. There's so much information, it's crazy. But I just, wheat is a grass, right? Cultivated for its seed. Keyword seed, the many species of wheat together make up a genus Triticum. I'm going to pronounce that, but I think it's interesting. It's tri, so that means there are 3 types of wheat, I guess, maybe. The archaeological record suggests that wheat was first cultivated in the Fertile Crescent, and I think they have an interesting picture here, and they go back about 12,000 years with it. But I like this because it kind of shows how, there was probably something. There was a landmass here. This island. What island is that? I can't tell. Because it's a crescent, right? And that was a full-on crescent. Something happened here. Okay, so moving away from the Fertile Crescent, it says botanically, we know like 10,000 BC, right? Yeah. Botanically, the wheat kernel is a type of fruit called a caryopsis. And that's interesting. I never would have ever thought that wheat was a fruit. I always thought of it as a grain, So it's interesting that botanically, by its genetic origin, it's actually a fruit, but they changed the name of it to grain, or they separate it from other fruits, which I think is interesting. I never would have known that if I hadn't investigated. Why would I ever look into what the heck wheat was? Like this anyway. And they talk about how much land it's grown on, and it's the second most produced cereal after maize. And I'm going to talk a little bit about maize and corn coming up a little bit. We talked about Mondalman in the last one, right? And this is interesting here. Since 1960, the world production of wheat and other grain crops has tripled and is expected to grow further through the middle of the 21st century. Now, it's interesting to me that it tripled in the 60 years, in the last 60 years, because this is when they really started to bring in like the food pyramid and things like that. I've done a little, it's years now, but I did do some research on that, and and I remember, like, this is how they killed Eisenhower by taking away his steak and eggs in the morning. So I think that's interesting. That it's tripled since. That's a key year for dietary change, right? And that you're now coming in. Your baby boomers are getting to be like teenage years now. And you're gonna really want to step up that mind control. Because you're going to have the drugs coming in, and all the television and music that's about to explode. Interesting. So let's see. Wheat is an important sort of carbohydrates, right? It is the leading source of vegetal protein in human food. So that means there's more vegetable protein in foods that other things eat. What? That's kind of interesting. What are the other things? They must have like 4 stomachs. They have a protein content of about 13%, which is relatively high compared to other major cereals. All right. But it's relatively low in protein quality because it doesn't have any amino acids, which is, of course, something essential to us, right? And this is interesting here. In a small part of the general population, and I'm going to talk about, this is going to be interesting, how misleading that effing statement is, okay? The major part of wheat protein can trigger celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, gluten ataxia, and dermatitis herpetiformis. Look how deadly wheat is, but it's the second most produced cereal. It's we're gonna get into some symbology when I get into the symbology. It's a symbol of death, but also resurrection, right? So, interesting. shoot, I started to scroll away and now I'm lost. Dang it. So anyway, I'm not going to get all into the ancient history of it because there's more interesting things to do. Everybody knows, okay, it's, yep, they've been feeding this stuff to us forever. And there are some interesting things in the years that, like it's introduced, like they genetically whittled it down to like 6,800 BC, but then the first time it's leavened or added yeast is like 1800 BC or something. It's like it was like 5,000 years. What were they doing with it for 5,000 years other than just flatbread? That's when pizza was invented, I guess. Pardon me, I just need a drink of water. Okay. So this is where I'm going to tie it into the corn. I'm going to try to tie it into Tom's video where there's so much out of place corn. They talk about corn in the Bible and why, if it's from North America, or Central America even, in Mexico. I don't know if Mexico North America or is that Central America? I don't know. So Eichhorn wheat, this is German, it's making more German connections. And it literally means single grain, right? And it's part of, here's that triticum. Right, so it has 14 chromosomes, right? So 2 times 7, you got your double sevens in there, all right? Husks, there was something. Oh, that's what, so since this is German for corn, right? Maybe the corn that's mentioned in the Bible is not like domesticated maize like we think about, but just wheat or other triticum grains, which are fruits, by the way. I don't know if they told you that. Your grains are fruits. They process the sugar. Right, so I think that was the connection I wanted to make there. Let's see. There's just so much, and I don't remember where this stuff is. That's why I need to do I gotta get better at computering. That's what I need to take a class, as I really do. They talk about hybrid wheat. If it grows everywhere and is so versatile, why the heck do you need to make hybrid wheat? What's the purpose of that? I'm not getting into that. Free threshing wheat. This is interesting. This is going to tie in with the symbol. I hope I get there. The symbology. with the temple being built over the threshing floor. At least I got that out there. If I don't remember it, if it doesn't come up. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all of this. But there is something down here that I wanted to get to. So this will all have to be edited. So we're going to talk a little bit about worldwide consumption, right? And like I said, it's interesting that it's everywhere. Look how much land it's growing on. And this is where I was trying to get to with all of that. And I'm sorry, I edited out. I did some good freewheeling in there, but it was just over too much scrolling. I can't do it to you guys. So world trade in wheat is greater than all other crops combined. Right? That's how much they're forcing it down us. Eat the wheat and eat. Eat wheat. Gotta eat your Wheaties. Right? So now we're going to talk about the health effects. And like I said, when at the beginning it said, I don't remember verbatim what it was, but it's such a small number of, a very small portion of the population, right? So the gluten, a major part of um, of the major part of the wheat protein can trigger celiac disease, right? Which I mentioned, right? And it says it affects about 1% of the general population in developed countries. I want you to think about that for a second. So just put America at 300 million, which is lowballing it, I'd imagine, right? Given the numbers that are given, who knows? It's actually probably a really highball figure in truth, if we ever know anything about the truth. But the numbers that they give us to work with, it's 300 is probably a conservative estimate, and that's 3 million people in America. And so what are the other developed countries and their populations? You start to add that up, how many people across the world are, affected by celiac disease and its other diseases, right? Because listen to this, it says there's evidence that most cases remain undiagnosed and untreated, right? So the only effective treatment is gluten-free diet, not eating the grain, that fruit, and more fruit, more metaphor, not even metaphor, more, evidence that, fruit is bad for us, right? If the fruit of knowledge, was the fall of mankind, look what the fruit of wheat is doing to us. It's killing us from the inside, right? That's what it's telling us here. Statistically, or at least a percentage of us, enough of us that it, is absolutely a concern, especially when it says most cases remain undiagnosed and untreated. And that's what all this heartburn, medication and ads and, every time I see a commercial for, I don't know, like Prilosec or something like that, why have heartburn when you don't have to? Or it's like, well, how about you just don't eat the foods that give you heartburn? How about that? Why doesn't that work? But they don't want us to do that. They want us to be sick, right? It's plain and simple. And it's everywhere because a sick population is an easily controlled population. All right, so we've learned a lot about wheat. I've gone on about wheat way longer than I should have. Let's get into the symbolism, because that's what this is about. It's what's telling the story on the side. All right, here it is. Right. So what is the wheat sheaf? Right, and here it's interesting because now we're going to bring in wheat and the Eucharist in a second here, which is interesting. So here's like your symbolic wheat sheaf, all right? And it is a death symbol, which is amazing, right? However old they want to tell us these ones are, right? So this woman writes this blog, I don't know if it's a woman or this person writes this blog. It is a woman, right? Carol. From where which I'm not going to read about her experience in the cemetery, but she does bring up because she finds wheat sheaves, right? And so she did a little bit of digging here, and so it's a tied bunch of grain stalks after they've been harvested by hand with scythes, right? However, with the advent of agricultural mechanization, it is now a bygone image. She says no one has ever known the origins of this staple crop, and so it has been regarded by many cultures as a gift from God, right? Which is interesting. But she writes, the wheat sheaf symbol has always had strong associations with the theme of resurrection, which is the arch, right? Which I think is really interesting, right? So the seemingly humble grain has played its part for many funeral cults, right? So it is a death symbol. Mourning rites throughout ancient cultures, so which is very interesting. And I did do some looking into the mourning rites, but I decided to edit it out, of this take because I keep going on too long. This is interesting here. For example, the ancient Greeks and Romans regarded it as life springing from death or immortality. And so when you think about our controllers and the cycles that they keep presenting to us, and, that does bring up it does connotate like in immortality, like it's the same thing happening again and again and again, um, run by the same, you know, types of controllers. So priests are reputed to have sprinkled wheat flour on their victim's head prior to sacrificing them. Right? I never heard that before either. So I thought that was really interesting. Right? And so Ceres and Demeter, the Greek and Roman goddesses of harvest and agriculture, often carried either a wheat sheaf or a harvester's sickle. Right? Ancient Egypt was seen as the breadbasket of the ancient Mediterranean due to the volume of crops produced. And Osiris, god of the underworld, was strongly associated with wheat within the context of a representation of rebirth. Right? And it's interesting that there are, not only with this wheat sheaf connection on the building, I tied Osiris in with that first brewery. And I hate that almost every video when I get into this Greek and Roman stuff is coming to that. I can't believe that it tried to show me the way, right from Jump Street. All right, so yeah, I want to talk about the Christian here a little bit. And so wheat is also important to the Christian religion with the Eucharist bread, which represents the body of Christ and his sacrifice. So it's interesting that they turned wheat into God, right? Because so Christ is God and the Holy Spirit, right? They're all one and the same. They're all the Trinity, and we get to eat that, or the Catholics do anyway, get to eat that. The body of Christ, the body of God, is wheat, which is poisonous. The body of Christ is poisonous. Stop eating it. I think that is absolutely hilarious, right? And so, yeah. Oh, so here's this was found in like Victorian era jewelry, right? Right from that time, if this reset was coming in, this is what they're looking at. And, it has such a dark, and it does. There's a few, very interesting that this jewelry was common, and they made skull ones, which were great too. Skull watches. There are some unbelievable mourning watches because I did look a little deeper into that, but I'm not going to for this presentation because I want to, as with everything, I'm finding all this Roman and Greek stuff, so let's get into Circe's, right? If the wheat is, she was the goddess of agriculture, right? And but she was also, so that's like the goddess of harvest, right? Which is like the opposite of fertility, right? So you have your rule of opposites going on there, right? Because she's both, maybe that's not the rule of opposites, but she's definitely both, all right? And she was part of this Aventine triad for the plebeian, and the plebeian just means, your everyday citizens, people like you and me. And this triad is interesting because I'm going to get into Liber and Libera in one of the book, one of the chapters of the Book of Arches. They're going to come up, and so it's important how this all ties in, right? The religious aspect that they're telling us on the side of this building, all this fertility imagery and so forth, right? So hers was, she had a 7-day April festival called the Cerealia, right? And so this is the spring festival. Every major religion has one, right? The dates are uncertain, but it was mid to late April, so right, the weather's turning, it's getting warm, right? Yay! All right, and this is from the early Roman period, this regal period, and again, I'm not up on my dates and Roman history and stuff like that, so, but it's interesting that they tied lit torches to live foxes and released them into the Circus Maximus. That must have been an unbelievable spectacle. I can only imagine, it just brings to mind Life of Brian, just that kind of thing, it was like just people, it was everyday stuff, maybe, I don't know. They talk about why that could have been done. So it's literally, the cerealia is the bread in circus. I'm guessing that's where the bread in the circus aspect comes from. Give them bread in circuses, right? Comes from ceres and wheat and the harvest of the grain, right? And so let's see. Is this is just for the cerealia, right? Okay, yeah, let's get back to Ceres. Um, you know, so she in Rome, she's equivalent to she's in the equivalent of the Greek 12 Olympians. So she has major stature. She's one of the 12, right? Her counterpart in Greek is Demeter, and we're going to talk about her in a minute as we get going, because they're going to tie into a little bit deeper with the fasces. There was something, I don't want to get too caught up. There was only a little bit on her going forward. Yes. Okay. And this goes in with Demeter too. She was the patron and protector of plebeian laws, rights, and tribunes. So she was like magistrate. Not only did she bring the harvest and the wheat, and not only was she fertility, I mean, she was all purpose. And so if she's just a copy of the Greek, well, let's find out what Demeter's all about, right? And it's grain and fertility, death and birth and death. She gets the whole, she gets the whole cycle, and she is the law bringer, right? So she, like I said, it's going to tie in with Lady Liberty and Columbia and things like this. That's coming with the Liber and mind control and things like that. She's simply described as the goddess of the harvest. She presided also over the sacred law, which is your morals and your ethics and what's right and wrong. And she got to be judge of that. And she was the central figure of these Eleusinian mysteries. The most famous of the secret religious rites of ancient Greece. So they couldn't be that secret. Right? But okay, but so she's, she's a representation of the real deal. And when they get into the etymology of her name here, her name literally means Mother Earth, right? Gaia, Mother Earth, gay, right? And then father and mother, maybe, all right? All right. Not that I'm a linguist or anything, so don't take anything that I have to say there seriously. But she was the giver of food, all right? All mothers provide food to their young. Well, that's not true, I guess, but in mammals anyway, right? So super interesting, all right? Goddess of agriculture, but she's also, this is it, right? Yeah. She's also the underworld goddess, because as the earth, and I wanted to, right? She was represented as snake-haired, so she has serpent ties as well, and holding a dove, right? And the dove has ties to Baltimore, and a dolphin, which I think is interesting. So symbolizes her, she has, worldly power, over the elements. She sends up gifts from the underworld. Okay, so there's a lot to go over with Demeter, and I'm going to try to skip through as quickly as I can, because I'm going to talk a lot more about her when I move forward. Like I mentioned, there's going to be something on Liber and Libera. So just the, basic, because like I said, the Romans just copied her for Ceres, which I think is interesting. I'm sure there's some astrological connection there. but they mention that her name is literally Mother Earth, right? And Da to me is like father, right? And so I guess gay could be mother, so mother and father together, Mother Earth. Um, of course, she was on coins. Um, there was she was also, this is interesting, the goddess of the poppy, right? And she was also represented the underworld, and she was the giver of gifts from the underworld, right? But it's interesting that she was the poppy goddess, right? Bearing sheaves and poppies in both hands. She was plentiful. The poppies were connected with a Cretan cult, which was eventually carried to the Eleusinian mysteries, right? And which, I can't go all that deep in there. And the poppy goddess wears the seed capsules, and so interesting that the poppy comes in, and the potential for opium use, to control the masses, right from the beginning, so I think that's an interesting connection that could be made, tying this in. But now I think it's time. We talked a lot about wheat and its connections to harvest, and its death symbology, and that it's also the body of Christ, which is, and how wheat is poison. So does that mean the body of Christ is poison? And it's crazy, right? And so now we're going to talk about the fascies. And there's been a lot of activity in the community. Although as a rule, I don't look over there after my Tartarian, videos. I pretty much have my blinders on, but that doesn't mean I hear things. I have friends, and I know strange stuff is going on, and I have seen some videos. But I know, so what the fasces means in terms of its original symbology, and how it's an imperial symbol of control, and that doesn't need to be gone over. And where it is, it's everywhere. It's on money, it's on flags, it's in every government emblem, and so there's no need to go over all of that. There are plenty of great videos out there for that. The only thing I'll chime in is that I don't believe that the term fasces should be universal for any weapon of mass destruction. I think that's stretching it a little bit. But I wanted to talk about the double axis and how this one is quadruple axed. And so I'm gonna, I did a search. I don't have the results pinned up because I've already rambled on forever. This one's gonna be much longer than my timer. I don't even remember if I set my timer. So let's talk about the double axe as part of the fasces, right? And so we'll bring it back just a little bit with the Etruscans. It's very early. The symbol goes back to the earliest, right? But it's made up, a big portion of it is that the rods are encircling this axe, and that the rods symbolize a strength and unity, right? One rod wouldn't be that strong, but you bundle them up, tie them together, they're much harder to break, right? But the axe is called a labrys, right? And I hope I say that correctly. All right, it's a double bited or bitted axe, right? And they tie it in with the labyrinth, which is interesting, right? Because there are some labyrinth symbologies with it, and since the names are similar, they think it may have been so that labyrinth would simply mean the house of the double axe, which is interesting, right? A priestly corporation in Delphi was named the Labiates. the original name was probably Labiad, but they had the R here, servants of the double axe. All right, and so did I skip ahead too much? No, okay. So the Roman times at Petrae and Messene, a goddess Lafria was worshipped, commonly identified with Artemis, right, from the region around Delphi. But however, in Crete, the double axe is not a weapon and always accompanies a woman and not a male god. And this is interesting. This guy's name is Becus, who they quote here. He wrote a book, I guess, or he's a professor of linguistics, right, on Proto-Indo-European language. And I think it's interesting that his name is Beaks, right, with the B, just like in the F-sharp video, the computer programmer's guy's name was Bacchus, Backus. No coincidences, right? And it's in relation with the labyrinth is speculative, as that's what we're all doing, right? So they do try to tie it in there, right? And so here again with Crete, sacred symbol, but it never accompanied a male god, always a female. But this is great right here. It seems that it was the symbol of the arch of the creation. All right, so where is it? This is the symbol of the arch of creation. And then on the side, I've got two of them. So 2 resets, 2 arcs of creation, perhaps. Hidden symbology in there. Crazy connection to make, right? I absolutely love that idea, right? And that it would also... Oh, there's my timer. See? I'll have to see what this one shapes out to be when I cut it. But, and this is an arch. And what do you have when you put 2 arches together? You could have, like an oval or an elliptical, and if you're into the horse racing, as allegedly they were in Baltimore, a horse track, right? Pardon me. Or you could have a circle, 2 arches together, So I think it's amazing that means arch. It's a symbol of creation. The double axe is a symbol of creation, and it's carried by women, which is interesting because, if you were to ask me, like if I were just walking around and you say, hey, fat man, is the axe a masculine or feminine symbol? I would say it's a masculine symbol. I would absolutely say that. But it isn't. It's a feminine symbol. And it could also be a very early scythe, right? Or scythe, and so I think that's interesting. Harvest, right? Associated with the women of the harvest. So the women would go and perhaps cut the wheat. So I thought that was extraordinary. No coincidences. That's amazing, right? So, but going forward, it has its place in the Middle East, and they talk about how it was kind of co-opted by men, and Zeus and the thunderbolt for a while. And again, further trying to connect it with labyrinths, which is interesting. And I think this is great. In Roman Crete, it is the labyrinth was often associated with mythological Amazons, which is awesome because it's Wonder Woman. I watched it every day when I was 8. And whenever when I see Amazon, I don't think about the place that wants to sell me stuff. I think about Wonder Woman. That's how old I am. And it's interesting that Amazons are women of war. Their father was the god of war and their mother was harmony. They are at peace when they are at war. That's what it being Amazon means, right? Badass bitches, right? No doubt about it. And so it's interesting that they say that the Labrys, has never was not a weapon, and women had it, but they associated with the Amazons, who everything was a weapon, in Amazon's hands, right? Um, it was the symbol of Hellenic polytheism, multiple, right? Not monotheism, but poly, right? And all right, not going down. I'm not going to go down Hellenic polytheism now, but I think that could be that time frame. It was a symbol of the neo-pagan. I love that, neo-pagan. What is neo-pagan? Modern paganism. As opposed to ancient paganism, I guess. Uh, but goddess movement, right? Feminine. The double axe is so therefore the fasces, the control, is a feminine thing, right? How could you not, if um, how could you not think that, when so many fasces have the Labrys in it, right? And today, it's a feminist interpretation of it as a symbol of matriarchy, right? Female, it's just a social system in which females hold the primary power positions. So it's interesting when you see people pushing a fascist agenda. Are they pushing a feminist agenda? Now, I'm not making any judgments, and when you get into socio-political issues like this, they're hot topics, and buttons get pushed, and and that's all done deliberately to us. We are designed to be trigger happy, to be easily triggered, and so I'm not going to go too deep. I do have a couple jokes coming that I hope people won't be offended by, but I think it's interesting. There are no coincidences. There are none, right? Since the 70s, it was been used by the lesbian community as a lesbian feminist symbol to represent women's strength and self-sufficiency. Make of that what you will. This symbol going back, with all these female roots, is deeply embedded in the fasces, which is the symbol of control, and connected to the wheat, right? And there's their symbol, and they use purple, which I thought was interesting because that's like a majestic, like a regal color, right? In Kyrgyzstan, and who knew that the LGBT community was big enough in Kyrgyzstan to have its own organization, but it is. And so very fascinating, and and it's interesting too that it brings in the LGBT community, because here in Baltimore there's a substantial LGBT community, and I have friends, and I have a brother who is gay, and so I make no judgments on these people, but for that, there is an agenda behind, these organizations, and I believe that, and I don't think many in the community understand that, which is, what makes open dialogue difficult, especially when, I have no judgment of these people, so my joke is, I think, the community is so big here that I think they would like to joke that San Francisco is Baltimore West, so there you have it. I think I'm going to wrap it up. That's, super interesting that the symbol, the Labrys inside the fasces has such feminine connotations, and going into the LGBT community, which is, with what's happening, and I did catch wind of the what's going on over in some of the flat Earth stuff, and and on the other side of the room, and with the mud flow as well, and some of that Tartaria angle, is getting caught up in some of that. It looks like, you know, again, I don't make any judgments, and um, I'm just happy to keep my blinders on and go forward, but um, like as long as you're not deceitful, if you're being deceitful and you're hurting people, um, then I have problems with that, and that those are the areas where I tend to judge people more on, and not by who they are, on a like individual level. It's how they treat others, and so, all right, that's chapter 6 of the Arches, super long chapter 6 on the fasces and the wheat. Let's close it out with a picture of it. We'll move along with the next one, hopefully tomorrow, but definitely there'll be another one this week anyway. So until the next one, please take care of yourselves and each other, and cheers, guys.